love this man's work, and I'm not just saying that because you're looking at me introducing you for the second time here. Don Van Natta Jr., ESPN's investigative reporter on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you, sir.
Great to see you, Rich. Thank
what
you.
did you win your 2 Pulitzers for?
I was at the New York Times. There were staff Pulitzers.
Okay.
One was the aftermath of 9/11. We did a series of stories about Al-Qaeda and won a Pulitzer for that. I think the Times won 7 Pulitzers after 9/11. And the other was about China basically buying equipment that they should not have been buying from some American companies.
Okay.
And that was the first one.
Does that include James Harden's wine and shoes now? That's what that means? That was easy, right, Chris?
Yeah, it was.
That was easy?
That's a layup.
That was easy.
That was a layup.
So what is the story, do you think, of the NFL right now? What is it? I know there's a lot. I just gave you a very macro question, but what do you think,
I
John?
think that first of all, I think they're loving every single economic metric. They're all going in the right direction. They love legalized gambling. We talked about this, I think, last time I was here, because the Supreme Court had just decided to legalize sports wagering across the country. They're thrilled with that. They're very happy to be rid of Dan Snyder. There's a lot of happiness about that. Everybody that I talked to, I think they actually bent over backwards, Rich, to allow Josh Harris a lot of leeway when it came to debt, and actually bent some rules on that purchase. That's how badly they wanted to get rid of Dan Snyder.
Yeah, so if you had ownership on sodium pentothal, they would have said what about Dan Snyder? Everything that you think, pretty much?
Yeah.
Did he really threaten to have dirt on fellow
So we
owners?
broke that story in October of last year, and what he did is he didn't threaten it publicly. Obviously, he told other owners that he had dirt on fellow owners, including Jerry Jones, and on Roger Goodell. And if forced, with his back against the wall, he would use it to blow up the entire league. And when we broke that story, I think that really was the beginning of the end for him, because Jerry Jones was his last wall of defense in the NFL among the owners. Jerry saw him as a protege for years and years and years. And I think as his support was dwindling among the owners, Jerry Jones was the last guy standing. And when Jerry found that out, I think it was all over. And just 3 weeks later, if you remember, he announced he was going to sell the team. Jim Irsay came out shortly after our story at that owners meeting and said, we have to take a look at Dan Snyder, and then he announced that he was going to sell the team in early November, just a few weeks after that story.
And then when the vote finally did just come in, I guess last month.
Yes.
That I still couldn't believe it. It was truly one of those, like, I will have to see it to believe it. And even though all the reports were saying on this day, Dan Snyder is going to sell the team, and the owners of the NFL will approve the sale, and it's going to happen. Even on that day, I'm like, is this really going to happen? And then a video of Jerry Jones coming up the escalator. Remember we played that video of him? He had these shades on with a big smile on his face. It's like, today's a great day or something like that.
It's a great day for the NFL.
That's what he said.
That's exactly what he said. And what he meant was because $6 billion was paid, this record amount, for an NFL franchise that arguably, is the worst of all the franchises. Dead last in local revenue, a stadium that's crumbling, all the problems that the Washington franchise has. And it still fetches more than $6 billion. That's what Jerry meant. He meant it's a great day.
So again, we don't have to play it sound full, but just play the video. So when he's coming up the escalator, we're like, and he's saying this, we thought like, oh, wow, he's so excited to have Dan Snyder out. But instead, he's thinking about his own net worth, is what you're saying, and how much the Cowboys are going to be worth. Not like he's going to sell it. The Jones family's going to have it forever, because there was Steven smiling in the background as well. But that's basically what you're saying. He's thinking right there.
There's no doubt in my mind that's what he was thinking. And I think when we did our story last October, Rich, about Snyder running around saying he had dirt. Now, I don't know whether he had dirt. I just know he was telling people, including fellow owners. I know that Jerry Jones still, after our story ran, still said all sorts of nice things about Snyder. Well, we'll have to see. He didn't want to say anything critical of him. And I think a big part of that, a big motive for that, was because he wanted to make sure that valuation stayed as high as possible. The owners have their eyes on those numbers. That Forbes report that comes out every year that does the estimates, and obviously the most valuable franchise is the Dallas Cowboys. But they look at that, and those valuations have spiraled exponentially. So when a team like the the Commanders, which is in such dire straits, sells for that kind of money. That's what Jerry meant. It's a great day for all of the NFL owners. Everybody in that club was smiling for that reason. They were happy to be rid of Snyder, too.
Sure.
But that's what they were looking at for the future. The next club that comes on the market will be worth that much more.
Don Van Natta Jr. of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show. You sat down. You said you just went to Vegas, right? You were just there. What's the deal with Gruden? What can you tell me? What's going on there?
The Gruden story is really, I think, the biggest concern among the owners right now, because Gruden has said that he is not going to settle. So it's now in the Nevada Supreme Court, the lawsuit that Jon Gruden filed against the NFL and against Roger Goodell, alleging that they leaked those emails that cost him his job and his career. And Gruden has told people that he will burn the house down. He'll burn the NFL down to get the truth. And my sense, since our story, that we did with Seth Wickersham, my colleague at ESPN, I've talked to people around Gruden, close to Gruden, and he is all in to get the truth. So if the Nevada Supreme Court rules in his favor, there will be discovery. And that discovery means that Gruden's attorneys can subpoena Roger Goodell, every single owner if they want to try to find out if the NFL did, in fact, leak those emails that cost Gruden his job.
When does that ruling in the Nevada
expected in October? Expected in just a couple of months. But I know from talking to people around the league, owners and executives, they're very, very concerned about it because Gruden is very, very upset. He wants the truth. He said no number on a check will satisfy him. And he wants his career back. I think he wants to coach again. As you know, he's working with the Saints.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. He's been at the Saints training camp, but I imagine, doesn't the NFL, with Discovery, not everything is going to be great for Jon Gruden to come out, right? And if he burns the NFL's house down, which owner is going to say, "Oh, yeah, we'll hire you and put you on the sideline"? So.
That's great. That's a great question. So the other issue too, Rich, is the 650,000 emails that were amassed, those Bruce Allen emails as part of the Wilkinson investigation. And the worry is that discovery will lead to those emails as well coming out. Yeah. And we've heard from people around the league, there's all sorts of other dirty laundry hidden in those emails about all sorts of people around the NFL. So the NFL is in a defensive crouch, very, very concerned about the lawsuit. And it's the ball's in the court. The Nevada Supreme Court's backyard.
And Gruden is just still angry, pissed about everything else that happened.
Extremely angry.
What do you think happened?
Well, our story laid out, I think, a pretty compelling case that there were a number of groups that had access to the emails and were involved in the leaking. We reported that DeMaurice Smith, the outgoing, now the ex-head of the National Football League Players Association, had gotten a copy of that first email and bragged that he leaked it to the Wall Street Journal. That second set of emails to the New York Times, Rich, I believe that the league had something to do with it. That's what our reporting showed. Rock Nation, our reporting showed, people told us was also involved. Desiree Perez, the CEO there. Yeah, that was reported in our story last month where we laid it all out. I think that everybody had a motive to leak it. And I think we laid who had access to it. We went into, and you and I talked about it when I was on your show just a couple of weeks ago when I was on the phone. There's a lot of animosity between Roger Goodell and Jon Gruden. Certainly in Jon Gruden's mind, he was running around, telling people, I'm the head of the Roger Goodell club, and his lawyers believe that got back to Goodell, and that was a motive for Goodell greenlighting the leak.
It's just like I just hear something like that, and I'm just like, the commissioner's got so many other fish to fry. Like he's hearing Jon Gruden's bad mouth, and that might just, he would laugh that off, not like say, let's do something that could potentially blow up in our faces here, And that's the thing I don't understand. If the NFL leaked it, then this is something that the NFL doesn't want discussed, that an executive and a coach is actually saying these sorts of things. That's
what the NFL has said in court. You're hitting right on a really important point.
Right.
Is the NFL has said in court, we had no incentive to do this. This was going to be disruptive to a season that was going along great. And, and actually what happened was once those emails were leaked And it was this, huge controversy all over again. It reminded everybody of Dan Snyder all over again. And just a week later, Congress opened up that investigation, that wide-ranging investigation that subpoenaed Dan Snyder. Remember when he was on his super yacht running around the Mediterranean and avoiding that subpoena? Roger Goodell had to subpoena. It wasn't just an investigation of Dan Snyder and the Washington Commanders. It was an investigation of the NFL. So the consequences of those leaks were very, very dire. They led, I believe, to Snyder eventually having to sell the team.
Well, and again, I know we discussed this the last time you were on, but it's true that Snyder called Gruden fat, and that's the genesis of the spat between these two men that led to potentially all of this stuff happening?
Yeah, they didn't like each other. And then there was this one incident in our story.
A lot of people don't like Dan Snyder. It seems like there's a lot of folks. But okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but absolutely right. It was. They were back and forth one night in a restaurant. Gruden has told people that Snyder was quite drunk. Yeah, and they got into it. And you're fat. Snyder said, "Gruden, you're fat." And Gruden said, "I'll dribble your head like a basketball." And it was just ugly language. And so from Gruden's perspective and his camp's perspective, they're thinking, okay, this is another reason, another motivation that Snyder had for initially looking at these racist, misogynistic emails that Gruden wrote years ago when he was an announcer at ESPN and said, let's get him out there. Let's get rid of this guy. And from the perspective of the Gruden camp, they believe Goodell also had a similar motive, that Snyder and Goodell looked at Gruden the same way and helped push these emails out to get rid of Gruden.
Don Van Natta here on the Rich Eisen Show from ESPN, the investigative reporter. So what's the future of football on TV, do you think? Obviously we're on a streamer right now. Amazon Prime has Thursday Night Football. YouTube TV is getting the Sunday Ticket, which, by the way, you can get right here on Roku. I'm mandated to say. And Peacock is going to have a playoff game this year behind a paywall. That's a first. What do you think the future of television is for the NFL based on some of the conversations you're hearing?
Well, I know that the owners love, obviously, the more people at the table with deep pockets, and the streamers, the Apples of the world and Amazons have very, very deep pockets and run up the score, run up the price for the packages, the happier they are.
Right.
And there was actually a movement, Rich, years ago to get the streamers involved even earlier, because there was a sense among some of the owners, look, the quicker we can go to this world of 5, 6, 7 different carriers with a piece of the NFL pie, the higher it will be, the higher the cost will be for every single one of them. Now, we have I think it's a 9-year deal, right? Yeah. The media deal is a long way off now because, of course, we have labor peace for just as long. But no, they love it. The owners and executives love it. They love the fact that the Sunday Ticket package is going to YouTube, and it appears that you're going to be able to watch, 4 games or 8 games? You're going to be able to do your own Octabox, I think, right? Watching. Well, I just saw that in the last day or two. I mean, that's
Scott Hansen will be so jealous that you get to do it on your own.
Yes. Okay. Taking some of Scott's territory.
Yeah, I know. Right? You better have the horns if you go with that. Okay. Why am I looking at you as I deliver that? I'm looking for the laugh, Chris. That's what I'm looking for.
I know what you want.
Thank you. And so, how about this one? What do you think's happening with the running back market, Don? You hear collusion, and I keep saying, what do you think? Like all 32 owners are, let's close the door, and let's make sure running backs don't get paid.
It feels that way. It feels that way. But it really does.
But you know how it works in these rooms? You really think that that's what's happening right now? For real?
Yeah, I mean, there are people around. Certainly there are people on the union side that believe there was collusion when it came to keeping Ray Rice out of the league after what happened back in 2014, keeping Colin Kaepernick out of the league. People believe that was, a smoke-filled room discussion that happened among the membership, as they call themselves, the owners. I don't know. It feels that way because it's so pronounced and it's so dramatic.
Yes,
and it's happened so suddenly. I'd love to dig into it.
Okay,
it's a good subject.
Again, I don't want to infringe on the stuff you're working on right now, or potentially not.
Yeah.
And again, this might be a better question for your colleague Seth Wickersham, but I'll ask it anyway to see if you have any 2 cents on it. Chris Brockman, diehard Patriot fan over there, has been talking about it for a while, that Belichick is potentially on a hot seat this year. that he's coaching for his gig. Any conversations that you've heard or had that you're willing to share on this front, Robert Kraft?
I think there's some truth to it. I mean, just some of the buzz that I've heard.
Yes.
Kraft is impatient. He's very spoiled. He had such a great run. He doesn't like what he's seen the last couple of years. They have a complicated relationship. Seth went into it in some detail in his book.
Yes.
And it's not as close as people think. And so, yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that Belichick would be on the hot seat, right, with maybe arguably the greatest coach of all time, certainly in the conversation, right, with Lombardi. And But yeah, Kraft wants to win again. Kraft has his eye. The other thing about Robert Kraft, you may know this, Rich, is he has his eye on that Hall of Fame prize.
Unfortunately, he did not get named the finalist yesterday. He did not.
Yeah, and I know how much that disappoints him. It deeply disappoints him. You know, there's a rivalry between Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft. I've talked about it before. And the fact Jerry got in quite a few years ago now, and Kraft is not there. Kraft feels that he's been just as instrumental in the business side of the NFL, growing the TV stuff. He was involved in that committee for years and was quite instrumental in growing that part of the business for the NFL.
So what is it? Is it the scandals, the cheating scandals that were that?
No, I don't know.
Befell the Patriots.
I don't have a vote. I would have to ask, the Peter Kings of the world that question. But certainly from Robert Kraft's perspective, that the people around him that I've talked to, feels like, look at what we've done with the franchise. I mean, the dynasty. And also what I've done for the NFL.
Well,
and
I hugging it out with Jeff Saturday during the lockout.
That's right.
That was pretty damn big.
Huge.
I lost much of my remaining hair during 2011.
No, he came to the rescue. That's exactly right. On that first CBA when DeMaurice Smith was in charge, it was really Robert Kraft and Saturday who cobbled that deal together. And so, yeah, there's a strong argument I think you can make for Robert Kraft. So, yeah, I know he's very, very disappointed, and that's something he desperately wants.
And the last one for you. What did you make of Jim Irsay's comments about Jonathan Taylor and basically like, hey, we're all going to be dead one day and the NFL is going to move on without us, so why do I need to pay my running back?
It's Irsay being Irsay, but it gets to your earlier question again of that kind of a comment I think is intended to send a message. Irsay is very good at sending messages. He did to Dan Snyder, and I think that was...
To his credit, he was one of the only owners to come out and basically say, we got to do something about this guy.
He was the only owner, Rich, to actually, to have the courage to do that. Now, I believe other owners were very, very happy that he did it. He was sort of the spokesman for the men and women in that room. But yeah, I think that was another loud message that was sent by Irsay that this market is... and I think Ezekiel Elliott's contract, if I had to look at it, is a big reason why there's a reset. It was a massive amount of money. And look at the wear and tear on him, the injuries that occurred, and now he just signed this one-year deal. And I think they thought, we're not doing that again. Yeah,
I guess Zeke's contract, Gurley's contract, right? Todd Gurley's contract.
Yes, that's right.
Yep. But and the thing that I can't, that is just amazing, McCaffrey's contract, right? And how I think he's worth every penny. And, even heard Aaron Rodgers say when Dalvin Cook signed, he was caping for the running back market about how, you got to run the football to win in this league. He's not wrong. But when it's time the running backs are valued up until the moment they ask for their money to be valued properly.
That's right.
And I think there's something wrong about that. But they are in a position where somebody could be drafted and immediately have an impact in a way that other positions aren't, like that. But put it all together, though, it's just wild to me that the supposed fungibility of the position began in the Mike Shanahan world.
Yes.
And the coach who employs the highest paid running back right now is Kyle, running an offense very similar to it. So even this offense, where Olandis Gary and Mike Anderson, and we all know the litany, succeeded, they still have the guy that's valued the most and is paid the most. It's kind of wild.
It is wild, and we'll see what McCaffrey does. I mean, that's the other fascinating thing that will play out this season, right, is to see, okay, there's a devaluation of the running backs in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But let's see now if there's a devaluation of the running backs among the coaches and on the field. And that's going to be really interesting to do that comparison this season.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Don, thanks for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. Anytime. Let me know when you're in Los Angeles, and you got a seat here anytime. I'm always fascinated to know what's on your mind, what's in your notebook that you're willing to share. Everybody check out Don Van Natta on, do we call it X now?
I'm still calling it Twitter. I don't think I'll ever call it X. And that stupid X on our phones now.
Well,
right?
you've made the mistake.
You updated. Don't update.
Oh, you're not supposed to update? I made the mistake.
Well, you were supposed to update.
Well, but if you want to keep the
you got
bird.
that X on your front of your iPhone. Just looks horrible.
It is horrible.
Yeah.
Move it to the second swipe. Move it over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, move it over.
Simple way to make Don's life better.
I'm trying.
Take the mug, by the way. Don't worry about it.
Oh, my God. I would love that.
Don't take it. He said Jeremy Schaap gave him grief for taking an outside the lines mug.
I did. I was so proud to be on the outside the line set the first time, and I just took the mug. I figured you could, right? And I get home, and I see Scotch tape on the bottom. It says Jeremy. I stole Jeremy Schaap's mug. We'll never hear the end of that one.
So ESPN doesn't have too many OTL mugs.
No. They're limited.
Now, do you still have the mug?
I do.
All right. Do me a favor.
Yes, sir.
Scratch underneath the Jeremy tape and see if it says Bob underneath it.
That's a great.
Because maybe they only have one mug that gets handed down.
That's right.
And you 5-finger discounted Jeremy's mug, Don.
When I get home to Miami, Rich, I will do that, and I will let you know whether it says
let
Bob
me know. If it
underneath.
says Bob underneath it, you have struck gold. You are definitely not giving that back.
That's going on eBay right away.
Don Van Natta here on The Rich Eisen Show. We'll wrap up in a moment.
See you, Rich.
Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.